In 1974, a man named Douglas Pratt took everything from me: my business, my reputation, my pregnant wife's savings, all of it. Gone in 1 week. I was 24 years old. I reported it to the police. They did nothing. I reported it to the bank. They did nothing. I told everyone who would listen. Nobody cared. Douglas Pratt moved to another city, started another life, and became a respected man. For 40 years, I watched him win. Then one morning last spring, a young man knocked on my door. He said, "Mr. Thompson, my name is Carter Pratt. Douglas Pratt was my father, and before he died, he told me what he did to you." I looked at that boy for a long time. Then I said, "You better come inside. I need to take you back to the summer of 1974. I was 24, fresh out of the Army, 2 years in Vietnam. Came home with nothing except discipline and hunger. I had saved $3,000, every dollar I had on earth. I had a girl, Sandra, 8 months pregnant with our son Michael. And I had a plan. A friend of mine, Tommy Briggs, told me about a business opportunity. Small construction company for sale. Owner was retiring. Great reputation. Existing contracts. Be mine for $4,000. I didn't have 4,000. I had 3. Tommy said he knew a man who could bridge the gap. Private investor. Local guy. Did this kind of deal all the time. His name was Douglas Pratt. Douglas Pratt was 35 years old. Well-dressed. Firm handshake. Looked you directly in the eye when he talked to you. I've learned since then that the people who look you hardest in the eye are usually the ones you should watch closest. Douglas said he'd cover the remaining $1,000 and handle all the paperwork for a 15% stake in the business. 15%. That sounded fair to me. I was 24. What did I know about percentages? I signed. 3 days later, the construction company's previous owner called me. He said the business had been sold. Not to me. He said a man named Douglas Pratt had come in 2 days before our deal with full payment in cash and bought the company outright. Using the paperwork I had signed, the paperwork I thought was a 15% investment agreement was actually a full power of attorney over the purchase transaction. I had signed over the right to complete the deal in my own name. Douglas Pratt had walked into that office and bought my business using my own signature. I drove to Douglas Pratt's office. The office was empty. He was already gone. And the worst part isn't even the business. Voice tightens. Sandra's savings, the money she'd kept in a joint account we'd opened together 2 weeks earlier, gone too. Every dollar. Our baby came 6 weeks later. I held my son Michael in that hospital, and I had $11 in my pocket. $11. And a name. Douglas Pratt. I want to tell you something about what revenge actually feels like over 40 years. People think it's rage. It's not rage. Rage burns out. Rage exhausts you. Rage makes you do stupid things that hurt yourself more than anyone else. What I felt for 40 years was something colder than rage. It was patience. I rebuilt. Slowly. Took a job, then another. Started a logistics company with my brother. Built a life. Raised Michael. Buried Sandra in 2017, cancer. Moved to North Carolina, but every few years, I'd check on Douglas Pratt. Not obsessively, just checking. By 1985, he was running a real estate company in Charleston. By 1995, he had a family, 2 kids. By 2005, he was on the city council. Respected, successful, generous donor to local charities, cold. He even had a foundation, the Douglas Pratt Community Foundation, named after himself, built with other people's money. I watched him receive an award once. Online, a video someone posted, Community Leader of the Year, 2019. He said, and I remember this exactly, he said, "Everything I have, I built with honest hard work and the grace of God." Beat. I closed my laptop. I went to bed. I didn't sleep. And then 14 months ago, the knock on the door. Carter Pratt was 38 years old. He looked like his father. Same jaw, same straight posture, but his eyes were different. His eyes were sorry. He sat at my kitchen table and he told me that Douglas Pratt had died 4 months earlier. Heart failure, peaceful, at home, and in his final 2 weeks, something had broken open in him. He had started confessing, not to a priest, to his children. Carter said his father had spent those 2 weeks going through a list of people he had wronged over his lifetime. I was number one on the list. Carter pulled out a handwritten letter from his jacket pocket, his father's handwriting. He put it on the table in front of me. He said, "He wrote this for you. He made me promise to deliver it personally. He said, if you want to read it, read it. If you want to burn it, burn it." He said either one was fair. I looked at that letter for a long time. My name on the front, Harold Thompson, in an old man's shaky handwriting. And I thought about 1974. I thought about $11 in a hospital while my son was born. I thought about Sandra. I thought about 40 years. Pause. I picked up the letter. I did not open it. I put it back down. And I said something to Carter Pratt that I want you to hear, because it surprised even me.
I said, "Carter, how old were you when your father did what he did to me?" He said he wasn't born yet. I said, "That's what I thought." I said, "Are you a good man?" He looked confused. He said he tried to be. I said, "Does your father's money run through your life right now?" He said, "Yes. His business, his house, all built on what his father left him." I said, "Then here's what I want." Carter Pratt leaned forward. I could see he was scared. "Good." I said, "I don't want your money. I don't want your apology. Your father's dead, and an apology from a dead man delivered by his son isn't worth the paper it's written on." I said, "Here's what I want. I want you to sit here for the next hour, and I'm going to tell you exactly what your father cost me and my family. Every detail, every year, the $11, Sandra's savings, my son's childhood, all of it. And then I want you to go home, and I want you to carry it, not the guilt. You didn't do anything, but the knowledge. I want someone from his bloodline to actually know the full truth of who Douglas Pratt was, because he died surrounded by people who thought he was a good man. And that, after 40 years, is the one thing I can actually fix." Carter Pratt sat at my kitchen table for 2 hours. I talked, he listened, he didn't look away once. At the end, he was crying. I was not. Dry, I did my crying in 1974. I was done.
2 months after Carter's visit, he called me. He said he'd been thinking about what I told him. He said he'd talked to his sister, Douglas's daughter. He said they'd both agreed on something. The Douglas Pratt Community Foundation, the one named after his father, the one built on a life of taking. They were dissolving it, renaming it, redirecting every dollar. Carter said, "We want to name it after Sandra, the Sandra Thompson Foundation, supporting young families in financial crisis." I couldn't speak for about 30 seconds. Sandra, my Sandra, who stretched $11 in a hospital in 1974 and never once complained, whose name was about to be on a foundation funded by the man who stole from her 50 years ago. I told Carter. She would have thought that was the funniest thing she ever heard. He laughed. For the first time that conversation, he actually laughed. I laughed too. I still haven't opened Douglas Pratt's letter. It's sitting in my kitchen drawer right now. My son Michael asks me every time he visits whether I've opened it. I tell him no. He asks why. Because I realized something. For 40 years, Douglas Pratt had power over me. Not because of what he took, but because I was always waiting. Waiting for justice. Waiting for consequences. Waiting for him to get what he deserved. That waiting gave him space in my head he had not earned and did not deserve. The foundation is real. Sandra's name is real. Carter knowing the truth is real. I don't need to read what a dying man wrote to make himself feel better. Voice firms up. His comfort is not my responsibility. Not anymore. So that letter is going to sit in that drawer until I decide otherwise. which maybe never, beat the tiniest hint of satisfaction. And somehow, that feels like the most powerful thing I've ever done in my life, deciding that his words don't get to land unless I choose to let them. That's not bitterness. That's freedom. Pause. Took me 49 years to get there, but I got there. So here's what Harold Thompson wants you to know. One thing, just one. The people who hurt you are counting on two things. They're counting on you staying angry enough to destroy yourself, or staying silent enough to let them win. The answer to both is neither. Be patient, and when your moment comes, don't take their money, don't take their apology. Take their legacy. Replace their name with someone better. That's not just revenge, that's justice. And justice, at any age, is always worth waiting for. Harold Thompson, 73 years old. Still got the letter in the drawer.